energy pioneers are being assassinated. This is a serious and important subject. So let's get into it a little bit. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and comment below as I'm going through the story. You can find other ways to support the channel in the description below. I've talked before about Mark McClandish, who is the probably the leading voice talking about the ARVs, the alien reproduction vehicles. He's an aerospace designer and a very accomplished fellow, very credible fellow. And his research and experiences led him to develop a cross-section of a working ARV, again, an alien reproduction vehicle. I made a few videos on this recently. It appeared, and he is not the only source for this information. There are others. Even John Keel was talking about this, and it appears that these things, these craft, have been in existence at least since the 1960s, if not before. Now, these craft, or at least the ones that he knew of, were powered by a zero-point energy, scalar energy. I'm not going to get into what zero-point energy is. I hardly understand it myself, even though I've read Hal Puthoff's paper talking about it. And he also talks about how these ships work, and he's talking about how ships in general using this technology would work, and how they could explain some of the phenomena associated with UFOs, like time dilation, etc. Even radiation burns and illnesses. But at any rate, I am convinced that these craft exist. There's a lot of people that have seen these things. And yes, the ARVs exist in my mind. If your research leads you to a different conclusion, that's fine, and let me know your thoughts below. But I am convinced that ARVs are a thing, that the government has had working UFOs, or whatever you want to call them, since at least the 1960s. Now, the implications of that are huge. Obviously, they appear to be able to go faster than light. So, I imagine they don't just dart around our atmosphere. They are probably going places. I've made videos before about, structures on the moon and Mars. I just did one. And yeah, so there are places they could go. But there are other implications as well. If zero-point energy is real, if we can use zero-point energy, presumably from, reverse engineering alien technology. If we have this energy, then that could change the world. That could literally transform the human civilization, largely for the better. Of course, maybe one reason they don't put this out there is that with unlimited energy and unlimited power, that's also unlimited power for evil as well as good. So, just imagine, nuclear technology, how that could be misused. Well, this is potentially far beyond that. So, that may or may not have something to do with their reservations coming forward. But I do think this technology should come forward. This is free energy that could transform the world. This should be in our hands. We should be able to use this. It should be, responsibly distributed and applied. And there should be safeguards to make sure people don't misuse it. But yes, we should have this technology. But it appears that people that are independently developing this technology are being taken out. This is something that I've seen again and again in my research, and there have been multiple people making videos on it, but they also include that in the documentary Zero Point, the Mark McClandish story, and I'll link to that in the description below. It's a great documentary. I encourage you to check it out. It'll give you a lot more information about the ARVs and various people corroborating that story, and it'll give you a detailed breakdown of how these things work. It's just super fascinating. But yes, it does talk about zero-point energy, scalar energy, And it talks about people who have been independently trying to develop this, presumably outside of the realm of the reverse engineering program. And these people are being assassinated, seemingly. So I'm going to play a clip from the documentary, and it will give a few examples of these free energy pioneers that are dying mysteriously. So here goes.
I had threats on the phone. I had the IRS come up and take all my money, take all my cars.
In fact, that's what happened to a guy in Canada. He had a machine the size of a shoebox that was supposed to put out enough power to power your home, and it was very unusual. Well, he was very open. He would give demonstrations. He wanted some investor to give him $1 million to sell the rights, and he was doing all the wrong things.
Sure, of course.
And then one day they came with a SWAT team, surrounded his house, confiscated all his machines, put him in jail, and said, if you want to get out of jail, you have to sign this paper that says you'll not work in this technology any further. So the pretense of why they arrested him, they claimed that he was harboring weapons of mass destruction.
So I had the feeling that I was being watched. I started feeling like maybe I was being followed. There were just, things, cars that would make a number of turns, and then, when you look at them, they turn off, that kind of stuff.
And you've actually heard a couple different stories about people being shut down when they're trying to implement this.
Or killed. Yeah. I mean, there's many times I lay awake at night with my 9mm under my pillow, loaded, and I wonder why they haven't killed me. I honestly did.
There's evidence to suggest it's dangerous to become successful in the area of applied zero-point energy, cold fusion, or related free energy technologies, or it can at least lead to very bad luck. Professor Stefan Marinoff, founder and director of the Institute of Fundamental Physics in Graz, Austria, was the de facto leader of the European free energy movement. He fell out of a high window in 1997. Eugene Maloff, an eminent physicist and expert in cold fusion who apparently had working tabletop devices, was beaten to death in 2004 at the height of his career and the day before a public announcement of his findings. Arie M. de Gois, an inventor of a patented revolutionary clean energy technology associated with the zero-point field, was found nearly dead in his car at an airport in 2007 and died a short time later. He missed his flight to Europe, where he was about to obtain substantial funding for his work. Then there's Mark Tomian, a brilliant physicist and inventor of the patented Star Drive, a system remarkably similar to the ARVs in its use of zero-point energy and related spaceflight applications. He and McCandlish had corresponded numerous times before his unexpected death in his home in 2009. This was 2 weeks after the successful trial of a working prototype for a key component of his system.
And if I woke up tomorrow on the other side of the veil, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. I really wouldn't. Because I know how serious the technology is. I know that it's real.
The storyline basically is that there's a lot of work going on in the aerospace industry that would indicate that we have black projects that have gone even darker, and that there's work being done on electrogravitic, on scalar technology, etc., that we don't even think that those in Congress or even in the military that approve black budgets are aware of.
I've seen copies of inter-office correspondence among defense contractors that openly stated that they felt the technology was a fundamental enabling technology, that it had all kinds of different defense applications, but it also had a lot of serious civilian applications that would be beneficial to humanity as a whole, to the environment. It seems obvious that someone, perhaps a group, maybe some kind of a rogue civilization within our society, has captured the technology. They're exploiting it for their own aims, for their own interests, whatever those might be.
There are other examples besides the ones mentioned in the movie The Y-Files does a good, if you're familiar with the channel, the Y-Files, they do a good breakdown giving some other examples of other people who have mysteriously met their ends. People involved in free energy. Now, I've given some reasons why they would not unroll this technology, but, there are other reasons as well. For example, obviously, the energy industry. The energy industry is huge. It's a huge percentage of the economy, of the global economy. It can shape the rise and falls of empires. So how deeply are they embedded in the government? Pretty deeply. How deeply are they embedded in the control group? That's the question that I have, because the control group is they are the ones running the show. Presumably the elite of the country or the global society have some, interaction with the control group. I would imagine that some elites are involved heavily in the control group. Some of those elites likely have energy interests. Is that who is responsible for holding back this technology? Obviously it's impossible to say. There is also, another wrinkle, and that's that this is reverse engineered alien technology, and there is ample evidence that the control group is interacting with non-human entities. You see that time and time again from experiencer accounts. Even Bob Lazar has his story about non-human entities. You see that time and again in experiencer accounts, contactee accounts, abductee accounts, the beings working with the military and government officials. So, I imagine the beings have a lot of input in what's going on and may or may not be directing the show. So they may not think we're ready for this technology. Because obviously, if the beings wanted to, they could accomplish UFO disclosure right now. But it hasn't happened yet. Or is it? Because a lot of the activity we're seeing in the skies, in the oceans, in the land, there's various theories that suggest that maybe the beings are unrolling a slow disclosure and gradually waking up humanity and letting it seep out into the consciousness and become more of a grassroots movement. And when humanity is ready, then they will reveal themselves and explain. And I think that is entirely possible. But in any case, I firmly believe that the evidence suggests that the beings are working with the control group, or, I shouldn't say the beings, because that's a very monolithic way of saying it. I should say a subset of the beings are working with the control group. And they may not want this technology in the hands of humanity for whatever reason. It's their technology. Well, presumably, because we do seem to be reverse engineering craft. That's what Bob Lazar was working on. And there are other reports of that as well. If we're working with the beings, then surely we have direct access to their technology. So why do we need to be reverse engineering it? I think that is a very interesting and important question to ask. There's also countless tales of crash retrievals all over the world, going back a long, long way, at least until the 1930s. That's when Mussolini recovered his UFO that Lou Elizondo has said was a real thing and that later on came into the possession of the U.S. Have we been retrieving these craft not to reverse engineer them, but simply to hide them? Ross Coulthart says that there is a virtual parking lot of UFOs at Wright-Patterson Airfield. And I've heard that corroborated from other sources as well. And there are other places besides Wright-Pat where these things are stored. I've talked about that as well too. So could examples like Bob Lazar, could that be an outlier? And in the main, we're not reverse engineering these things because we already have direct access to this technology. And we are using this technology as part of an exchange with the beings. They are allowing people to be abducted, possibly, in exchange for this technology. Is that what's going on? I can see how that would make sense If so, what are we doing with this technology? Going to the moon and Mars, whatever we're doing, how does that benefit the control group? What are they up to? What are they getting out of this? They're not sharing this technology with the world. Well, not very much. I mean, there is the Day After Roswell stuff where, people like Colonel Corso did farm this technology out, and it has changed the world. Like the computer revolution, presumably, or, according to Colonel Corso, came from that. So, there is the argument there, but, computer revolution is great. It truly has been transformative socially, but it's not free energy. So they have access to free energy, and they are taking out people who are independently developing it. At least that's the way it seems to me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Please smash the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss a single video. Please join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. And please, if you enjoy these videos, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. See the first line in the description below, and there's 2 tiers of membership to receive exclusive access and videos. Until next time, this is Jack with Cosmic Road.